a few words to start about your background and your role at Coty.
Yes, of course. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. So about my background, to introduce myself, I'm Alexandra, and I've been at Coty for 3.5 years. I'll tell you a little bit about Coty in a moment, because it's possible that you might not know the Coty brand as such. My background is mainly in data and analytics. So I've been working in data for 15 years, and at Coty for 3 years within the digital, marketing and media teams. And actually, I am the lead for data analytics. So really, the goal of my teams is to support the marketing teams in using insight at scale and to help them make data-driven decisions. So before Coty, I spent 7 years at Adidas working in both global and local teams. I was also at an agency before that, and now I've been in the beauty industry for 3 years. And to give you some information about Coty, as I mentioned, you might not necessarily know the Coty brand, but Coty has been around for 120 years. So it's one of the leaders in the world of beauty and cosmetics. And we have a large portfolio of brands around the world, present in more than 30 countries with a team of over 11,000 people. And so the brands you are much more likely to know are brands like Bourjois Paris, Hugo Boss Parfums, Lancaster Beauty, or all the brands you can see here on the screen. That's why the company name itself is less well known, but I'm sure you know the brands we distribute. And to get a bit more into the heart of the matter, I'm part of the digital team at Coty. The ambition of our team is really to support and accelerate the growth of our brands and the business. And as for the data and analytics side, we are actually one from terms of the enablers, really working hand in hand with the IT teams and both the global and local brand teams. And we have several pillars within the analytics team, and one of those pillars is advanced analytics, which is what we're going to talk a bit more about today. It's really at the intersection of our business objectives and our strategic goals. And the goal is really to accelerate insights at scale for all teams and to make them truly accessible to all brand teams and all markets. As was mentioned a bit earlier, in the various analyst presentations, there is a lot of data available to BD marketers. There are also many tools that teams need to access today. So the goal is to make this as simple as possible for all our teams. And Artefact has been supporting us on this journey for 3 years now, I believe.
Exactly. It's a long story. So at first, Artefact helped Coty regain control of its media accounts by redeploying proprietary GMP accounts managed by Coty itself, rather than by its media agencies. This was one of the challenges, both in terms of transparency and acceleration, that Coty's leadership had identified. Following the implementation of GMP, we also rolled out one of the GCP components to accelerate a number of data marketing use cases, including the one we'll be discussing in a moment. And then we worked on, the output of all this data collected through advanced analytics. And we also discussed a lot of topics related to adoption at scale. Now, that's not the main topic today, but as Justine mentioned, obviously the full ability to bring teams on board, to explain to them what we can discover and also the limitations of certain KPIs are critical factors to ensure that value is spread throughout the organization.
So to illustrate the point you raised, Alexis, one of the business case we're going to talk about today is in the context of supporting influencer marketing teams. So one of our strategic business challenges is really advocacy. Advocacy covers a lot of things: CRM, PR and influence. But here, the point we worked on with our influencer teams is how we support them in making sure we understand all our indicators related to influencer marketing. So we track KPIs like IMV, which is earned media value, VIT, or our day-to-day engagement rate. These are part of the Audi brand team's toolkit with the ambition of ranking at the top. And today we are in pole position for some of our brands, as you can see on the screen, with triple or even quadruple digit growth for certain brands. So that's a lot of KPIs that the teams track on a daily basis.
So you just mentioned some recent great successes for Coty, which have allowed it to compete with much larger players, whom we won't name here. But all of this is especially due to the tremendous work done on the analytics that are made available to marketers. Here we see on the screen an example of a dashboard which has been blurred by Coty's public relations, as you might expect, that allows teams, just like across the entire corporate group, to monitor their health indicators. There you have it.
Yes, so actually we track indicators like our share of branded search, the track, so IMV, as I mentioned, VIT, and engagement rate. We probably have around 50 different metrics and KPIs that allow us to manage things on a daily basis. And of course, this comes with certain challenges that we've worked on together more with the Artefact team. The thing is, we have a lot of KPIs, and the challenge was to help the teams understand which KPIs are the most important, the most relevant for them, the ones they really need to track on a daily basis. How do the KPIs interact with each other? Also, being able to understand how a lagging indicator impacts a leading indicator, as well as the time it can take for this to materialize, and the differences that can exist between different brands and different markets, thus the markets as well. Those are the 4 challenges we set out to solve together with the Artefact team.
We somewhat grandly stated on the previous slide that the idea is to crack the code of brand building. What are the dimensions with which we try to establish correlations or causal links?
We try to understand the impact of all the metrics we currently monitor, specifically the impact they can have on our sales, on what we call love now, which is measured by the advocacy score, and also on share of search. So understanding how a metric like IMV impacts our sales, how long it can take, how we generate IMV, and the 3 metrics. We tried to do it, and we did it. It was a request from our brand teams, of course, but also to ensure that we have the most consolidated view possible for all teams, and that it is not based on intuition, of course, but on empirical analysis.
So we won't cover model details. Just know these models are re-engineered versions of statistical and mathematical models, typically found in marketing mix modeling. So here the idea isn't necessarily to measure sales, even though one of the dimensions you saw, one of the lagging indicators, is indeed a business sales metric. But here it's about doing the same thing with indicators that we're going to try to predict. So advocacy indicators and share of search indicators. And so here the key point is to say that correlation tests or exercises are within reach of teams, almost just using Excel. But with the limitations of correlation, you never really know which KPI to cause for which movement and vice versa. And here it was thanks to these mathematical models from the world of MMM, causality models, Granger tests, and so on. The goal is to arrive at real explanatory models. Donc, meaning the idea is, if I remove this KPI, will that lagging indicator sales or love still occur? And conversely, it's the ability to reconstruct a sales history or an advocacy history based on modeling the different input KPIs. The aim of the game is to find the right predictors, as you've understood. Obviously, this isn't what we deliver to marketers, even if some might have an excessive fondness for modeling. But the idea isn't to provide them with complex models. The idea is rather to give them a little extra layer on top of the dashboards, you saw earlier, which allows them to navigate these dashboards a bit more quickly and efficiently. So here it's quite small on the screen, but basically you have little icons attached to the different sections. And when you hover your cursor over them, they tell you whether this metric has a strong, weak, or average causal value. And it gives you, in the most detailed model, it even gives you the number of weeks. It tells you what the delay is between the moment you have a deterioration or improvement in this KPI and a deterioration or improvement in the lagging indicator. For example, if my share of voice on a particular social parameter declines, after how much time will I start to see a drop in sales? So from what point should I start to panic and implement corrective measures? Do I have several days or do I have several months? Obviously, that's completely different in terms of the marketing actions to be taken. That's the snapshot, and it's the quote-unquote final immediate daily product that's provided to the marketing teams. But on this occasion, we also took a bit of a cross-sectional look across different countries, different brands, the insights we could draw about various brand-building models within the Coty portfolio, and also for some of our competitors who were mapped.
Yes. So as a result, we did some of these analyses, and here we were looking at a group of brands within the same market. What we found quite interesting is that beyond understanding the lead and lag effect of the indicators, it also allows us to better understand how certain brands are built and certain communication models. And also to understand that even if a brand is in the same market with a fairly similar positioning, in fact, the indicators will not be exactly the same because the communication models can be quite different, and also due to the maturity of some of the brands and the size of the market. So here in the example we've shown you, it's a bit cryptic because I haven't given you the names of the brands, but what we can see is that, for example, two brands like brand B and C are quite similar, with KPIs that are more related to paid and owned channels that will drive sales, whereas a brand like Brand A relies more on owned KPIs, such as websites and others, and earned KPIs with a bit more influence. So this also gives us insights into the communication models and the impact they have on the final indicators.
Yes, especially since it's often the same marketing managers in the countries who will potentially be managing these three brands. So the ability to understand how the brands work and how they respond is extremely important. So there you have it. We've tried once again to zoom out. We've anonymized all the KPIs, so that makes the exercise a bit less enjoyable. But that's the nature of public affairs. There are still a few things we can share. I think this restores the value of a certain number of owned KPIs regarding what happens on Coty's owned properties, whether social or then web, as a primary indicator of future sales or future advocacy, as opposed to an approach that would rely heavily on share of voice among influencers, etc. So I think it has somewhat rebalanced the attention given to the different KPIs. It also highlighted the fact that between different geographies, the formula for building a brand can be quite different. And here we have an example with the owned KPIs. For instance, between North America and Europe, which you do we can see that the metrics are quite different. This led to quite a bit of reflection within the marketing teams. By crunching the results a bit, it prompted them to question a number of preconceived notions about the brands. If you'd like to share with us.
Yes, so we actually had three major takeaways. We spent quite a bit of time with our brands, especially in the consumer beauty segment, to understand the results and see which lessons we could apply. So the first takeaway, which I already shared with you a little, is that even if brands are very close with fairly similar positioning, the indicators can still be different. So you really can't just replicate a model without validating it first, which is why we wanted to make it very simple for them in a dashboard, so they could just use a eye-heel toggle to check the status of the KPI. The second point is that we need to continuously challenge our KPIs. So we actually repeat this exercise several times, and just because an indicator has historically been relevant doesn't mean it will remain so over time. And so the third point is that it's also important to track several dimensions, whether it's value-based metrics or share-based metrics. So things like shares of, for some of the KPIs, we realized that depending mainly on the maturity of the brands, this had a significant impact on the results.
So all of this is almost like academic research in marketing analytics. Can you share a bit about the day-to-day operations within the teams? How is all of this actually used?
Yes, so on a daily basis, actually, we're quite pleased. As a result, so this dashboard is one of the most used dashboards by the marketing teams and the digital teams. So we have this dashboard as well as creative dashboards or competitive analysis dashboards. So we're delighted to know that even though it's dense and complicated, in the end, it's the most used dashboard today. And what we can also see is that in terms of usage, there are three main ways it's used. The first use, which was really our initial intention, is to understand the lead and lag KPIs and the key drivers. So that's how it's used today, to help teams cut through some of the noise from all the different KPIs that actually exist. The second point is that it gives them quick access to create reports for the various leadership teams. And these reports are consolidated. So as a result, everyone reports the same thing, and we don't each have our own version of the truth. And finally, the third point, which is perhaps the most interesting, because that's where we spend the most time discussing with the teams, is that it helps them implement strategic and operational decisions for their marketing plans in the coming years. So as a result, we work closely together to define, since we understand how the KPIs influence our sales or see advocacy, specific ratios by country and by market in a more detailed way with the marketing teams.
So as you can see, we can keep pushing the boundaries, Ipaya, of advanced analytics in the marketing world, as long as it obviously creates value and delivers the actionable insights for the teams, which I hope is the case with these dashboards. Thank you, Alexandra, for sharing your experience.